My name is Ravi. I am 24 years old. 2 years ago, I left India. I came to live in Chicago, USA. It was my first time in another country. I was excited but also afraid. I had never lived alone before. Everything was new: the city, the people, the food. I wanted a better life, but I did not know what to expect. On my first morning, I woke up early. I looked out the window. The buildings were tall, and the sky was gray. I missed the warm sun in India. I needed breakfast, so I walked outside. I saw a small cafe on the corner. I went in and looked at the menu. There were so many choices. I asked for tea, but they gave me coffee. It tasted strong and strange. After 1 week, I found a job. It was at a small grocery store. I helped stock shelves and clean the floor. The boss was kind but spoke very fast. Sometimes I didn't understand him. When I asked questions, I felt shy. My English was okay, but not good enough. I smiled a lot and said yes, even when I was confused. It was hard, but I tried my best. I lived in a small apartment. It had 1 bed, 1 table, and a little kitchen. There was no TV. It was very quiet. At night, I felt lonely. In India, my parents were always nearby. We talked and laughed every evening. Here, it was just me. I ate dinner alone. Sometimes I called home just to hear their voices. One day, I made a mistake at work. I put the wrong price on the milk. A customer got angry and shouted. I did not know what to say. My boss came and fixed the problem. He said, "It's okay, Ravi. You will learn." I felt bad but also thankful. Mistakes help us grow. That night, I told myself, don't give up. Winter came fast in Chicago. The wind was strong and the snow was deep. I had never seen snow before. At first, it was beautiful. But soon, I learned it was also difficult. My hands were cold. My shoes got wet. I had to wake up early and walk to work. Sometimes I slipped on the ice. I missed the warm weather in India. But I also felt proud. I was learning to be strong. One day a man came into the store. He bought fruit and smiled at me. His name was Daniel. He lived near my apartment. The next day he came again. We started talking about movies and food. He spoke slowly, and I could understand him. He said, "Let's go get pizza sometime." That was my first time going out with a friend in America. It felt really nice. At work, I still had trouble with English. Sometimes customers asked for things I didn't know. They spoke fast or used new words. I said sorry many times. At home, I watched YouTube videos in English. I listened to simple stories again and again. Daniel also helped me learn. He said, "Don't be afraid to ask." Little by little, my English got better. I felt more confident each week. In November, Daniel invited me to Thanksgiving dinner. I had never heard of this holiday before. His family cooked turkey, potatoes, and pie. We sat around the table and shared stories. Everyone was kind to me. They asked about India and my family. I smiled the whole time. It felt like home for one night. That dinner is a memory I will never forget. It showed me that good people are everywhere. One night I looked at a photo of my family. It was taken before I left. My mom was smiling. My dad had his hand on my shoulder. I felt a tear fall down my face. I missed their voices, their food, their hugs. I missed the noise of home, the smell of my mother's cooking. But I also knew I had grown. I was not the same boy who left India. I was learning, changing, and becoming stronger. This was my new life, and I was going to make it work. One day, a new girl started working at the store. Her name was Emily. She had brown hair and kind eyes. She smiled and said, "Hi, I'm new here." I smiled back and said, "Me too." Kind of. We started working together every afternoon. She liked to laugh, and I liked to listen. We talked about music, food, and family. One day she said, "Do you want to get coffee after work?" I said yes, but inside I was nervous. It was my first time going out with a girl in America. We went to a small cafe. She ordered a drink with extra milk and sugar. I got my usual black coffee, no sugar. She smiled and said, "That's very strong." We sat by the window and talked for an hour. It was easy and fun. I told her about India. She told me about her dog. She listened carefully, and I felt comfortable. When we said goodbye, she waved and said, "Let's do this again." I walked home with a big smile. After that, we met more often. We went for walks in the park. We ate sandwiches by the lake. Sometimes we just sat and talked. She taught me some new English words. I told her funny stories about my childhood. I felt happy when I was with her. I didn't feel like a stranger anymore. She made me feel welcome. I was starting to like her very much. One weekend, my sister called. She said, "Mom and Dad want to talk to you." We had a long video call. I showed them my room, my food, and my smile. They asked, "Are you happy?" I said, "Yes, but I still miss you." They looked proud. My mother said, "You are doing well. We believe in you." Their words gave me strength. I knew I had to keep going. My boss called me into the office. He said, "Ravi, you're doing a good job. I want to give you more hours." I was surprised and happy. That meant more money and more trust. I said, "Thank you, sir. I will work hard." That day, I felt proud of myself. I was not just surviving. I was growing. I was learning how to live in a new place. Step by step, things were getting better. I was not the same Ravi anymore. Emily said, "Let's take a trip this weekend." I asked, "Where?" She smiled and said, Let's go to Lake Michigan. I packed a small bag. Emily drove, and I looked out the window. The sky was blue, and the road was long. We listened to music and laughed. It was my first time outside the city. I felt free, like a bird learning to fly. Everything looked new and beautiful. The lake was big and blue. Waves moved gently in the wind. People were swimming and playing. Children laughed and ran on the sand. Emily and I sat under a tree. We ate fruit and cold sandwiches. She took pictures of the water. I closed my eyes and listened to the sound of nature. For the first time, I felt calm inside, like the world had stopped for a moment. On the way home, it started to rain. Emily said, "Uh-oh, we forgot the umbrella." The road was slippery, and we drove slowly. Suddenly, the car made a strange sound. We stopped at a gas station. A tire was flat. Emily looked worried, but I said, "It's okay. We will figure it out." We called for help, and soon a man came to fix it. It was scary, but we worked together. That night, we sat in the car and talked. Emily said, "You're strong, Ravi. I like your spirit." I smiled and said, "I'm just learning every day." We talked about our dreams. She wanted to open a small cafe. I wanted to help other people who moved to a new country. We looked at each other and laughed. Maybe we were different, but we had the same hope. To build a happy life, step by step. When I got home, my room felt warmer. It was still small, but it didn't feel lonely anymore. I had friends, I had goals, I had stories to tell. I sat at my desk and opened my notebook. I wrote down everything I felt: the lake, the flat tire, the smile on Emily's face. All of it was part of my journey, and I knew this was only the beginning. One evening, I sat in my room. I looked at my phone and saw an old video. It was me trying to speak English 2 years ago. My voice was soft. I looked shy. Now I speak better. I feel stronger. I thought, maybe I can help others. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Help people learn English. Tell them they are not alone." That was the beginning of a new dream. The next day I told Emily. She smiled and said, "That's a great idea." I cleaned my room and found a good light. I used my phone to record the video. I said, "Hello, my name is Ravi. I moved to the USA 2 years ago." I shared my story slowly. I talked about coffee, cold weather, and small mistakes. I said, "Don't worry, you can learn too." Then I clicked upload. My first video was online. At first, no one watched my video. I felt a little sad, but the next morning I saw a comment. It said, "Thank you, Ravi. I feel the same way." I smiled. More comments came. People from many countries watched and shared. They wrote things like, "I'm learning too," and "Your story gives me hope." I didn't feel alone anymore. We were all learning together. Every week, I made a new video. Sometimes I taught easy English words. Sometimes I shared funny stories. I talked about life, mistakes, and small wins. Emily helped me with the camera. Daniel helped me with editing. I didn't know much, but I spoke from the heart. My channel grew slowly. I didn't care about views. I only cared about people. One night, I looked at the comments again. A girl from Brazil wrote, "I cried while watching this. Thank you." I didn't know her, but I felt close to her. Our stories were different, but our hearts were the same. I closed my laptop and looked outside. The city lights were soft and far away. I took a deep breath and smiled. I was no longer just Ravi from India. I was someone helping others. And that gave my life meaning. One morning, I opened my email. It was from a teacher at a local school. She wrote, "We watched your videos. The students love them." Then she asked, "Would you like to visit our class and talk?" I was surprised. Me? Talk in front of students? I felt nervous, but I also felt excited. I wrote back, yes, I would be happy to come. That was my first time being invited as a speaker. I wanted to make it special. The classroom was bright and full of smiling faces. The students were from many countries, just like me. I stood in front of them with a small note in my hand. My hands were shaking a little. I said, "My name is Ravi. 2 years ago, I didn't speak English well." Some students nodded. I told them about my first coffee, my mistakes, and my new life. I said, "Don't be afraid. You will get better." When I finished, they clapped. One girl said, "Thank you. You give me hope." That night, I got a call from my sister. She said, "Ravi, I have news." I asked, "Is everything okay?" She said, "Yes, but Mom is not feeling well." My heart felt heavy. I wanted to fly home right away. But I had work and flights were expensive. I said, "Please tell Mom I love her." I sat in silence, feeling far away. Sometimes, distance is the hardest part. The next day, I couldn't focus. At work, I made small mistakes. At home, I didn't feel like filming. I missed my family so much. I looked at my bank account. I didn't have enough money to go home. I felt helpless. But then I thought, what can I do now, today? So I called my mom again. She smiled and said, "Hearing your voice is enough." I made a short video that night. I said, "Sometimes we feel far from the people we love. But even if we are far, we can still send love." I spoke slowly with feeling. In the comments, someone wrote, "This is what I needed today." Another said, "I miss my mom too. It helped me feel less alone. Maybe I couldn't go home yet, but I could stay strong. I was learning that love has no borders, and hope can live in every word." It was December, and the city was full of lights. Shops played music. People wore red and green. Emily said, "This is Christmas time." I had never celebrated Christmas before. We bought a small tree for my room. I hung lights on the wall. Daniel gave me a funny gift, a snowman hat. We laughed and drank hot chocolate. It was cold outside, but warm inside. For the first time, I felt part of this holiday. On Christmas morning, I got a small box. It was from my sister. Inside was a scarf that my mother made. There was also a letter. She wrote, "We miss you every day, but we are proud." My eyes filled with tears. I touched the scarf and felt close to home. Sometimes love travels without a plane. It can come in a box, a voice, or a simple word. That was the best gift I got that year. In January, life got very busy. Work was hard. My YouTube channel was growing fast. Many people sent questions, and I tried to answer all. I wanted to help everyone, but I felt tired. I slept late and skipped meals. Emily said, "Ravi, take care of yourself too." She was right. I was giving everything, but forgetting my own health. So I made a plan: rest, walk, and eat well. Helping others is good, but I had to help myself too. I took 1 week off from making videos. At first, I felt guilty, but then I took walks, read books, and cooked slow meals. I called my mom just to chat. Daniel came over and brought tea. We sat on the floor and listened to old songs. I didn't check my phone. I just lived the moment. Sometimes doing nothing helps us feel everything. It was a small pause, but a big piece. After the break, I made a new video. I talked about rest and balance. I said, "You are not lazy when you stop. You are human." People loved it. One person wrote, "I needed this reminder today." Another said, "You always speak from the heart." I felt ready again. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My journey was not just about language. It was about life and learning to live well. One rainy morning, someone knocked on my door. I opened it and stood still. It was my cousin, Arjun, from India. I couldn't believe it. He smiled and said, "Surprise!" He came to study in the U.S. for 6 months. We hugged and laughed. Suddenly, my small apartment felt full. It was like bringing a piece of home into my new life. I didn't feel so far away anymore. Living with Arjun was fun and strange. We spoke in our language again. We cooked spicy food and played old songs. He made jokes about my American habits. He said, "Ravi, you eat so much salad now." We laughed every night, but I also saw my life through his eyes. He was new, like I once was. Now I was the one helping someone start over. It felt like a full circle. One day my boss called me to his office. He said, "Ravi, we want you to lead the new team." It was a big job, with more money and more hours, but I would have less time for my videos. I went home and thought a lot. Emily said, "What does your heart say?" Daniel said, "Sometimes you grow by choosing." I felt proud, but also unsure. Should I grow in my job or grow in my passion? That night, I sat with Arjun on the balcony. He said, "You always tell people to follow their dream. Will you follow yours now?" His words stayed in my mind. The next morning, I gave my answer. I am thankful, but I want to stay part-time. I need time for my videos. My boss nodded and smiled. "You have something special, Ravi. Don't lose it." It was hard, but I chose with my heart, not fear. With more time, I started a new video series. It was called Small Words, Big Feelings. Each video was short and soft. I used simple English to talk about deep things: homesickness, joy, courage. People loved it. I got messages from teachers, students, and mothers. One woman said, "Your videos help me sleep at night." Another said, "My son learns English with you every day." And I thought, this is why I stayed, not just to live, but to give. One evening I checked my inbox. There was an email from a big language website. They wrote, "We love your videos. Can we work together?" I read it again just to be sure. They wanted me to make lessons using my stories. They would share it with thousands of students. I closed my eyes and smiled. All those nights of filming in silence. Now people really saw me. And they wanted to help me grow. A few days later, I saw Emily at the store. We hadn't seen each other for months. She smiled and said, "Hey, teacher." I laughed. "Only part-time," I said. We sat at a nearby cafe. She asked about my videos, my life, and my cousin. I asked about her new job. We talked like old friends. It felt warm, but also different. Time had changed us, but not the kindness between us. That night, my sister called again. She said, "Ravi, Mom is much better now." I felt a wave of relief. Then she added, "We want you to come home, just for a visit." My heart jumped. I hadn't been home in almost 3 years. The thought of seeing them, smelling the food, hearing their voices in person, it was something I dreamed of. I looked at my calendar. My hands were shaking. I bought the ticket. It was expensive, but worth it. I told Daniel, Emily, and even my viewers, everyone was happy for me. I packed a few gifts, books, chocolates, and a scarf for my mom. I wrote a short letter for my dad. My heart was full. I wasn't going back as the same person. I was still me, but stronger, softer, and more grateful. It was not the end. It was a return. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat with Arjun and Max, Daniel's dog. Arjun said, "You did it, brother. You made your way." Max just wagged his tail. I looked around my small apartment. So many memories. So much growth. I whispered, "Thank you," to the walls, the fridge, the books. Then I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. Tomorrow I would fly, not to escape, but to reconnect, and this time I was ready. The plane landed in India. I looked out the window. The sun was bright, and the air looked warm. I stepped out and smelled the dust, the food, the life. At the gate, I saw my parents. My mother ran to me crying and smiling. My father stood tall, but had tears in his eyes. I hugged them both tightly. No words, just hearts. I was home. My old house was still the same. The small kitchen, the busy street, the red chair near the window. But I was not the same. I had changed. I walked through the neighborhood. People waved and said, "You've grown, Ravi." I saw the kids I once played with, now taller than me. Everything looked smaller, but full of memory. I smiled and thought, I never really left. I just paused. This was still my place, and I belonged. One evening I walked with my dad. We didn't speak much at first. Then he said, "You did well, son." I felt a lump in my throat. He asked about my life, my videos, my friends. I told him everything. He nodded and said, "Keep helping people. That's a good life." We watched the sun set over the rooftops. No big words, just truth. And I knew he was proud. The visit went by fast. Soon it was time to go back to America. My mom packed food in every corner of my bag. My dad gave me a book of poems. We stood at the airport gate again, but this time there were no tears, just smiles and soft words. "Come back soon," they said. And I promised. Yes, but no matter where I go, you are always with me. Home was not just a place. It was part of me now. Back in Chicago, I opened my laptop. I looked at my old videos. Then I smiled and made a new one. I said, "Hello, friends. I just came back from home. I want to tell you something. Life is not easy, but it is beautiful." I paused and looked at the camera. You are not alone. Keep going, keep learning, and keep loving. Then I whispered, Your story matters, just like mine. And with that, a new chapter began.